Welcome to the Redline Narratives Podcast. I'm your host, Engineer Marlon Solomon. It's 100 years of Black History Month, 88 years since the Boston Red Line map was issued. It's People Before Highways Day, and 250 years of United States of America. So we got a lot of numbers to go through, and we got a great guy to go through it with, Gregory Ball from Embrace Boston. But before we get into our conversation, I'd like you to please donate, a like, and subscribe. Your support supports our nonprofit, the Afrimerican Academy, to continue youth programs, history research, tours, research on culture and development in the city of Boston, and much, much more. So let's get into it and nurture this culture to thrive. What's up, Mr. Ball?
How are you? How are you? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's Friday, and it's time to get ready for the big storm that's coming. You know what I'm saying? We're about to be chilly willy up in Boston. How you been doing?
I've been great, man. I can't complain. You know, it's a lot of hard work that we've been doing lately at Embrace. You know, we're on the other side of our annual MLK celebration for MLK weekend.
Yes.
We just had it this past weekend. It was a complete.
How was it?
It was beautiful, beautiful. The thing about it is that it's a twofold celebration. So one is the opportunity for us to bring people together that don't normally get the opportunity to be together and hang out together. We feel like we're like that crossroads. You know how you always have that one friend that knows everybody? I feel like to a degree, like embraces that friend who knows everybody from every space. So people who normally wouldn't even be in the same room together are all at the same party having a good time. But then the other piece of it that I get super excited about is the honorees. So, you know, every year we lift up, you know, some of our leaders that have basically worked so hard for our community over the years. You know, this year we had Maurice St. Fleur, for example, you know, one of the first Haitian elected officials in the country, and who has worked as a tireless advocate for us here in Boston, along with, I mean, it was just so many. We had the Bishop Dickerson and First Lady Dickerson from Greater Love. So we had a wide variety of people. We had Tom and Patricia O'Brien from HYM. Tom owns a development HYM. So we had a wide variety of people who quite honestly have taken the idea of doing good and wrapping it into their everyday life, into the work that they're doing. So these are all people that we should hold up as as examples. You know, with the Embrace, the actual monument itself, people very much kind of focus on the fact that Dr. and Mrs. King are obviously being lifted up in that process. But on the plaza of the monument are the names of 69 of our own local heroes. 69.
Yeah, Chuck Turner's on there.
Chuck Turner's there. You know, there's a variety of people are there, and you
know, Reverend Dr. Michael Haynes is there.
Absolutely, right. And there's a variety of people that have all contributed to the rich history of the city, and we felt it was really important to lift them up as well. So, as a part of that tradition, we're doing that with Embrace Honors every year, and it's always wonderful because these are people who work so tirelessly for us in the community. And you know, they all it's almost very interesting because they all kind of like, you guys want to give me an award? You want to lift me up? You know?
Yes.
Because they're not even, and the reason I say it is it's funny because they're not even thinking of that kind of attitude. They don't carry that in the work. They're doing it because they feel like it's the right thing to do, and that's an example I think we all should follow.
100%. You know, I had the same thing when we focus with the youth program. We focus a lot on our local history, right? I'm a big advocate. I don't even think like local history is more important than other history. Why? Because you see, the students need to know who they are and where they stand in the struggle. So if you know about Ruth Babson, you know about how MECO got started. And if you know how MECO, when you're in MECO, then you know, oh, this was supposed to be temporary, or all the little nuances with the story, right? With the narrative is now out there. So now our students know, oh, well, we're supposed to be carrying on with Babson's work, right? So I find, but when you talk about local history, like I said, local heroes, they're just like you said, we just here on the streets doing what we do, what we're called to do. There's long hours, no pay, no recognition. So when we get it, it's like, oh, okay.
You also know how to you don't know how to take it, and that really is what happens with the folks that we have, is that they, you can tell when somebody being fake humble. These are people who are legitimately humble. And
in fact, you gotta find them, because they're running away from you. Like, come on, bro. Like, look, I didn't do this for this. Like they're not even used to being in the spotlight.
Yeah, and you're pulling them into it. And part of it is, I think that we need to, and why it's so important that we lift up our own history, that we applaud those people who are doing well. Because number one, it's hard work that these people are doing, and you got to let people know that you appreciate it, so that they stay in the fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
To be quite honest, it's very easy to get discouraged. It's very easy to kind of put the mantle down and not want to do the work. And the other part of it, I think, is important, and you kind of alluded to it just now as you're talking about the history in younger people's minds. I think that if you know that you come from greatness, you have a completely different attitude when you're working in a space. So I always use the example of in athletics. So when you're a basketball player and you get drafted to the Boston Celtics, when you arrive in Boston, you know that there's a certain expectation about what needs to be done. You understand there's 18 championships that came before you. You understand there's legendary players, there's Hall of Famers. That is what you're rising to be a part of. You're not going to some bum team that barely can put people in the stand.
Right.
You're going to a place where there is a deep love and there's a passion. And same thing with the Patriots. You step in the Gillette Stadium, and what we do here is win.
Go and Patriots! They're gonna get it this weekend. You know that, right?
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But along those same lines, if you have that attitude as a student or as a person that's operating in the city, when you're, when you know that there is a Ruth Batson, that there's a, the Chuck Turners, and that those people existed in the work they did, and all those names that are kind of should be lauded, the Michael Haynes, like when you think about those folks and the work that they brought to the table, that you're not starting from scratch. One of the big problems we have here in Boston is a lot of times we think we're the first to do something. We think no one's ever done it. We love to say no one's ever done this. Yes, they have. You just didn't know. And I think the thing which is great about your show and the work that you're doing is that you're getting people the opportunity to understand their past so that they can rise to that occasion.
100%. I'm even glad you brought up the Celtics, because one of the spaces. Okay, so we can perfect segue to Boston Redline 88, which is our.
I'm sorry, I'm just jumping all over your phone.
No, it's all good. We're doing good. We're doing good, bro. No, so it's Boston Redline 88, right? So it's Claim Our Space. So on the New Guinea Tour, which is a new tour with the Museum of African American History and the West End Museum collaboration. We one of the stops is, of course, in the West End is the is TD. Well, on the way from Cops Hill Cemetery to the West End Museum, you walk by TD Garden. Now, one of the issues I have, and this is where it goes to the erasure, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the Patriots, right? Patriots just put a statue of Tom Brady right in front, because literally he's the GOAT of 7 championships. We can all go on his things, and it's rightfully so that it's there. Now, in the Celtics case, that's Bill Russell. His, I know his number is retired league-wide, but right in front of the building, there's a bear.
Yeah, the bear is there. The Russell statue is by City Hall.
Exactly. So that is like putting Tom Brady's statue somewhere in Norwood. You see what I'm saying? So
I'll push back a little bit on that. I think that having gone through the process of what it takes to put a monument in this city, I think there's a balance between what you're talking about like being smart enough and being willful enough to make sure that you're placing monuments with intention. To your point, like Tom
In
Brady,
location, it
to
matters.
your point,
Right.
Tom Brady needs to be in front of Gillette Stadium, and
Right.
logically, you would expect that Bill Russell would be in front of
The
the Garden.
greatest professional athlete in American history. Then nobody's won more chips than him. He's the first black head coach, and I actually think if the statue there, it should be of him being a head coach, not like we. I think he saw that statue, in person. So I don't think that should be moved. The one that's there, because he saw it there. So I don't think that's fair. Like, let it be moved, let it be there. But I think recognition as a coach should be there. And as the greatest American pro sports athlete, like in any sport, I feel that now I think a good question to always ask is, what would we do if we had control? Because a lot of the things you say, the process to put it there is part of the erasure. Erasure is sometimes experienced in terms of resistance. It's just hard to do, right? Because it wouldn't be hard to do it if this was our culture, if this was our cultural homeland. When I say homeland, I mean this is a place where our faces are on the money. Our like that's a homeland. So what I'm saying is that if we had complete control for about 100 years, right, of what goes where and what spaces are valued, because we would value this space, right? Boston Celtics are the first team to start an all five-man Black African American team. These are historic. When you think of what the NBA is today, right? It's the erasure that makes us also reduce value in why it needs to be there. And I'm not saying, I'm going to say that if the Bobby Orr, they leave that there, but with a bear, it's not even a human, right? And we don't have spaces in the whole of the West End. There, we don't have pictures, we don't have faces, black faces. They just put the one by Scally Square by the King's Church, which is beautiful. I thought that was lovely. Honestly, I was so happy. I went there, took pictures, everything, but what I'm trying to say, there are so many spaces. Crispus Attucks, right? No, he's the first to die, first to deny, right? No, there's nothing. So it's just about, to me, right? It's about who places the value. Because if let's say we could, like I said, change history with the magic wand, we would put Crispus Attucks there.
Well, I think
so
I think we are in that space where that magic wand is getting waved. So the work that we do at Embrace is really about waving that magic wand and coming to the table and saying, hey, this is what we need to lift up. We didn't work on this project, but talking about Bill Russell, to put a button on that bridge, that new bridge that got opened up is named after him. So so I think more than, in spite of what we're seeing in some cases on a national level, there are pockets of spaces within the United States that are rising to the occasion. So I like to think that Boston is a place of leadership in that case.
It's always been.
Do we always have work to do? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Trust me, I am not trying to sell you anything to tell you that everything is all okay. But I will say that more than ever, I believe we have some people who are coming to the table with an earnest ability to see the bigger picture and understand how we're all a part of that. That's one of the reasons why we were able to place the Embrace on Boston Common. So
that was great. And I want to just say, okay, before I want to just congratulate you guys. That was just huge. I can't tell you how historic that I feel that is. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. I will tell you this. One day we'll tell the true Hollywood story of that whole process. But I will tell you this, that in terms of the work that was being done, the thought process that was being done around it, it was intentional. So, for example, one of the early conversations was about putting the monument in Roxbury, right?
I remember.
Which I think would have been fine, but there are a couple of reasons why, in part of our long-term planning, putting it on a common made sense. So number one, the common is next to Beacon Hill, which is the oldest Black neighborhood in the city of Boston. So it's in the shadow of that. Also, the other piece of it is Boston is one of America's storytelling cities. When people want to
Yes.
know about America, they come to here. They go to Philadelphia. They go to D.C. New York to a lesser degree. But we're one of the places that tell people what America's about. And what better place than the Boston Common, America's oldest public park.
I agree.
Putting it on essentially on the Freedom Trail, this monument to Black love and to Black people that cannot be ignored. So that when you come to hear the story of Boston, you hear about all those pieces and the revolution and all those things, but you hear about this monument to Black love right there in the heart of it. You know what I mean? So I think that, and for Embrace, the idea was never to not be in Roxbury or to have as if Roxbury wasn't worthy. It was always a double-sided thing. It was like, okay, we exist and we deserve to exist in multiple places in the city. We can't self-segregate. we can't put ourselves into our own boxes. Like, downtown belongs to you and I, just like it belongs to the kid in East Boston, the kid in the North End.
Yeah,
it belongs to everybody. So why not to activate and be connected and do things for everyone and show the world that something beautiful and of value came from our community and is right there in the middle of the city. So, and then the long-term goal was always to have the monument downtown and then a place in Roxbury so that we could link the two of them together. So there was always the intention and vision. So when you're talking about the erasure, I think that now more than ever, you have people like what we're doing, not to toot our own horn, but what we're doing with, Friends of the Garden.
We need to be tooting our own horn. No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a variety of people who are really leaning into this work. And as a part of that, going into the new year, we're actually going to be doing a monument marker project where we're going to be putting markers on some of the key places in Boston history as part of the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the country. So you talk about King's Chapel. You talk about that piece of King's Chapel. We're putting a marker there. We're putting a marker at the home where Mrs. King stayed in Roxbury. So there's a few of them, and we'll be making announcements about those very shortly.
Fantastic. I mean, I can't wait to hear it because that's exactly what Claim Our Space is about. Boston Redline 88, like I said, we've done some tours, although my tours are mostly on infrastructural history and the cultural hubs and just some key points, about it. And that goes to, like I said, it's about when you study history, what I've noticed in my work is that you've got to kind of do some, how would you say, you kind of have to mimic what history would have naturally done, right? Meaning that because of the erasure, the knocking down of spaces, like for instance, the culturally appropriate location for not the Embrace. I think, okay, let me give you my take on the Embrace statue. Now, the Embrace statue culturally.
Yes, please. If anybody will tell me the truth, I know it's going to be you. So go ahead.
No, I know. But the Embrace statue, I think, is in an appropriate place and the appropriate theme for the location it's in. So, like every location, putting a monument in the location would actually change the theme of the location based on the location. So what I see the Embrace, that is his embrace when he got the Nobel Peace Prize between him and his wife, right? Now, to me, there's always been a reframing of Dr. King, the Reverend Dr. King. See, it's hard to get off that thing as a civic leader as opposed to a religious leader. Now, in our community, he was a religious leader. He was a spiritual leader. The civic part is the way basically the status quo looked at him, right? The Nobel Peace Prize is something that was given to him by people in Norway that I'm sure our current president wishes he could have the same honor. And I couldn't help it. It was just an easy dig. And then what was I going to say? So the Peace Prize. In fact, even doctor, right? The title of doctor is given into by Boston University, a PWI. So the title that we gave him, that he got from being in our community, is Reverend, right? So so while I look at it culturally, that if we had like I said, the magic wand, and we could just, like, if history just happened naturally without disturbance, the 12th Street Baptist Church would still be at the corner of Melnia Cass and Shawmut, right? In a formerly Jewish temple, right? That space out there would be the appropriate place to honor that union, because that's where they met.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and then if you were going to put the statue there to frame him as a civic leader, to frame him as a Nobel Peace Prize winner, would not be appropriate, because that is literally the heart of the community. So you would have to frame him from the viewpoint of the heart of the community, which would now be in that reverence. So if the statue was there, probably be him, and maybe in one of his pastor preacher robes or something like that, with his family, or with Coretta by his side, or that would be the framing around that statue, because the location is now for that community, right? It's supposed to inspire young people to know things like how religion was so important in his life and fuel the civil rights movement. So then that would inspire more young people in the community to become pastors, or to go to BU. Or then when you see Coretta Scott King there, you would be, oh, she was a musician, and then you would be inspired in those regards, because there's a different purpose, right? And so that's where I kind of, so I think that what is in the embrace statue where it is completely appropriate, completely in line with its location in the Boston Common. I think that is perfect. In fact, it was brilliantly done. I couldn't even imagine a better way to do the cultural infrastructure other than it's done there. But like I said, if that same statue was in the city, well, in Roxbury, I would not agree with that framing, because it's more of him from the viewpoint of status quo. So that's just my take.
And that's the beautiful part of it. I think that people can come to the table with a variety of opinions and thought processes around that. And I think that you're thinking outside of the box, or just even thinking about it, is the kind of thinking that's necessary. Like, part of the pushback that or part of the controversy that happened after the statue made its debut was really about not depicting their faces and their heads,
right,
and things like that. And I guess for me, I wanted to get away from, and it was, let me give a little background. Number one, it was always meant to be an abstract. When the call went out, it wasn't for a statue that was an actual physical depiction of them. In fact, the Embrace is the only actual depiction of them physically of all the finalists. One was a bridge, another one was an altar, another one was a reflecting pool. Like, they were never designed to be a snapshot of the kings. And I think that we collectively we have to start to think about different ways that we can memorialize people, and different ways to approach monuments, and the different ways that we can approach art. Right. I think that, and if people don't like it from an artistic level,
it's subjective. I don't
have a problem with that. But I think the thing that can be a little troublesome is when people don't like it, and they think that there was some type of nefarious kind of background behind it or whatever. And that was not the case. There's a bunch of rumors going around. The city of Boston paid for it. The city of Boston didn't pay $1. They didn't pay a dime for it, in the sense that all the money that was raised to create the monument was raised from private money. Every dollar. And in fact, the money, even as the city, so we raised that money and created the statue, and then gifted it to the city of Boston, along with a fund that pays for the upkeep of the statue. So even the continued upkeep of it is not being.
It's not even on the city.
But you would have thought that this came out of everybody's, sales tax and the city taxes, and that was not the case at all. And I think that it just, the idea of kind of a stretching what our idea of what a monument is, like the idea that bridge that's next to the garden is a monument to Bill Russell, and his family. came up here and they were just so incredibly pleased. And then when you think about Bill Russell, that really is an appropriate monument to him. A bridge
100%.
because of who he was, how he brought people together, and to your point
it's speaking my language, brother.
I was saying, and to your point about the appropriate execution for the person in the place, I think that is an appropriate execution. So while I would love to have a statue of him out front, I like having a bridge. You know what I mean? I enjoy.
I get you. I get you.
I feel you on your point, but like I said, when I think about that. Like that feels grand. It feels big.
I want both. I want both. I want it all. I want it all. I'm unapologetic with what I'm doing. I'm like I said, the idea is to say, if this was our village, remember, so I'm half Nigerian, right? So growing up in Africa, my mother's African American. She's from Virginia. But growing up in Africa, like I've seen how we honor our people when there's no interference, when there's no, I say, white noise. Right, just clouding out the resistance. Will they go for this? And I think that and to speak on what you said about the nefarious narrative, and this, this is Redline Narratives, and and that's part of the purpose of the art is to attack that narrative. So that is, and I think that we should look at it as a data point that did we approach the narrative that there is a undergirding story in our communities about how these how our faces are not shown. Remember, like I just mentioned, Crispus Attucks, they're saying Boston 250, first to defy, first to deny, literally the first person to die for this country, right? So we have to understand that the erasure and the muddling and all that other things, we have to, how do we counteract that? How would it have been in a natural setting if we didn't have to deal with all the racism and the erasure? And I think that speaks a long way to the narrative that sometimes we have to be even deliberate in the art, because this, in order to get the support, to get the inspiring nature, because that narrative is going to discourage, somebody's going to say it, and then some young person is going to hear it. That young person is going to internalize it. That person is going to grow up with it, right? And it's going to continue. So we have to be intentional with, like I said, I mean, I'm an engineer that loves history. So cultural infrastructure is literally my thing. There's a storyline and a redline narrative undergirding a lot of the stuff, like you said, because there is no faces downtown with, like you said, it's the oldest, West End is the oldest African-American community in Boston, right? When you add the New Guinea settlement around Cops Hill Cemetery, a lot of people don't know that's the first free settlement in Boston. First like African American community in Boston. There, in the cemetery, there's a patch with no graves. That's where we are at. Near close to where Prince Hall is at. All this erasure builds on each other over time. With enough time, it just leaves our body politic, and then that void creates that narrative that you experience by not having the head. I don't, like me personally, like I said, I have no issue with it. I understood exactly what it was doing, but it does mean that moving forward, we have to have, we want to squash that narrative, or not maybe squash, we want to convert that narrative into a more positive narrative and more positive story in our community, because that's going to bring around the belonging. What it says is that our community doesn't feel that that Boston loves us, and we have every right to feel that way, right? I mean, it's, I'm when you think of Madison Park Vocational School, right? I'm happy. I feel that your site being there is probably one of the best things that happened to that space. But people don't realize that was our African-American Chinatown, right? That was our space, right? And it's important that we, so we don't feel we belong, because if we had our space and it was taken away, we want to feel like we belong. So go ahead.
Along those lines, though, I think, and I absolutely hear you when you're talking about the erasure, but I think that we also have to stop thinking in these zero-sum kind of approaches to things. And not to say that you are, but collectively we have to think of that. There are many people in multiple opportunities to have more bites at the apple, is my point.
Of course.
So, there is a few different ways that we can continue to lift up people, and we can't necessarily feel like, I think sometimes we get this attitude like, as this is every single time, this is the only time it's ever going to be done. Like, no, do it again.
But the community will feel that way because they're not, they're just not. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that there's some, like, as us is trying to kind of like shepherd this forward. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. There's going to be multiple opportunities, right? I'm just saying that there's a harm that has been done, right? Yes. That nefarious suspicion is based in. So
and
how
that's
are we
where that reaction comes from? That
right,
reaction
exactly.
It's one of the reasons why I was able to afford, and not that I'm in some high and mighty place, but I could afford grace to people who would be upset.
Right.
I know that they don't know all the ins and outs of everything that went through it. They don't know that we are a Black-led organization that is primarily staffed by Black people.
Speak on it, brother.
You know what I mean? So I can't fault anybody for the things they didn't know. I can figure out ways to do a better job of letting them know so that we don't have this problem. But also, again, to your point, I'm approaching with this optimistic thought of we'll have multiple bites at the apple, where somebody can say, this is them doing this to us again. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I can understand that because there's been so many times when stuff has legitimately happened to us on a regular basis. So it's not coming from this place of
it's a legitimate conspiracy
theory. It's a legitimate experience that people
that's what I call it. The legitimate conspiracy theory, because it's like, how in the community you hear some wild stuff like, bruh, that is not what's happening. But the harm has been done, and you can't, people have been denied education. When you deny them education, they'll think like that. You know what I'm saying? So we have to, I completely get it. It's not like we're high and mighty or anything like that. I don't ever feel like that. I just feel like we need to understand that we need to find a source of healing. And if they saw their face there, that might have helped the healing process. And I'm not saying it's like, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I feel that while we are dealing with, because we can't lie to ourselves and anybody and say that regardless of whatever, there are people that probably don't even think that embrace that you should be there at all because they have racist views. Absolutely. Right. So, and then when you've been scarred and hit upside your head by racism all your life, your father's life, your grandmother's life, going back multiple generations, we have to understand that we have to start taking the opportunities to address this healing process, because people want to see their faces out there because they built the country. We, all the things that, we've done for this country and never getting our due. So, I think we're going to have many bites of the apple, and I think we're going to do that. And I think we're going to, and Embrace is going to be an integral part in Boston to getting that done. I truly believe that. So, yeah.
I believe that you're correct with that as well. The goal is to be able to do that on a regular basis, and to lift up the heroes that we have in the city, and also to use that intersection of informing people about the past to help us determine what our future is. It's kind of like we were saying earlier. If you don't believe or understand you come from a championship pedigree, then you may think that this is way more difficult than it is, or you may not believe in your ability to do it. I'm sure, when you deal with children on a regular basis, that is a portion of that as well, is the idea that they need to know that they can win, that they can be successful. They need positivity poured into them so that greatness can come out. I think on a regular basis, we actually have to lock down and kind of make sure that we're doing that. And I think the work that we're doing with Embrace, with the monument work that we're doing, is right along that lines. And then thinking about the multiple ways that monuments are enacted. memorializing someone could be a statue. It could be a film. It could be a song. So I think that we need to think outside the box about the different ways that we can approach this. And I think and it's not new. Because everything I'm talking about, we've done in the past. We have made movies about people to make sure that people know about them. We have had songs that have lasted generations so that people know about things. So I think that when we think outside of what's normally done, I think there's the opportunity for great things to happen.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. You're talking about what's going on, with Embrace. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, you mentioned that you're going to be releasing things for Boston 250. Can you tell us more about what Embrace has planned for Boston 250 coming up in this summer?
Yeah, so we are partner in part of Everyone 250, which is an initiative that kind of with the idea to give a full perspective of the 250 years celebration that was going on and making sure that everybody is represented and brought to the table. And part of that is recognizing a variety of different sites that are part of that 250 years of history that the city of Boston and beyond has had. So we've worked under that Everyone 250. One of the things that we did a monument for W.E.B. Du Bois, along with a wonderful group of folks out in Western Mass. They led the charge on it, and we came in and became partners with them. And now there is a statue for W.E.B. Du Bois in Western Mass, right there in the Berkshires where he made his home. So we're going to be doing things along that line on a regular basis throughout the entire year to celebrate the nation's birthday. So we're going to be doing those monuments throughout the city, and there'll be a number of them. And like I said, we'll be making an announcement shortly that'll cover all of them. You'll be able to go onto our website and see everything that we're talking about.
Oh, fantastic! I mean, I wanted even to say that Everyone 250. You guys have worked with us here at the Afrimerican Academy. We're very grateful, bringing a lot of spotlight to many organizations as well as ours in regards to our tours, because we've been gearing up for at least the last 2 years, working on our tours. We trained young people last summer, and now because of the additional exposure for Boston Redline 88, we are looking forward to a fantastic summer with our tours and our workshops, our Redline Narratives documentary, a lot more, right? So I think it's brilliant. I think breaking silos is what you guys do. You have a strong community presence as well as a corporate presence. So I think that that's something that is going to benefit the underserved communities. Especially, one of my partners in the Once Upon a Time tour of Once Upon a Time in Nubian Square tour is Colin Knight of Live Like a Local Tour Boston. And, we are very concerned about, we have a lot of challenges as community members that are trying to take advantage of a lot of this tourism dollars, right? Mm-hmm. How do you see Embrace helping us, everything 250, and just even, and of course beyond, in trying to get some of these tourism dollars? Because when people think about Boston, they're thinking about Faneuil Hall, they're thinking about the Red Sox, they're thinking about downtown, and very rarely do they get to come and see the Love Story mural right here in Roxbury. So tell us how we can or what, maybe if they're like supports that we can get this summer to make our summers very successful.
Well, one of the things that we're doing with our Everyone 250 program that we're a part of, we're helping to amplify the work that people are doing throughout the city. So if you go on the Everyone 250 website, you'll be able to see all the upcoming events, and people will be able to look beyond just the usual spaces and places that they are. We feel like, one of our goals is to really kind of fill in the gaps with the broad coalition of people that we're working with, to do exactly what you're talking about, to show people that there is a little bit more to Boston than downtown. I tell people all the time that when you come to Boston, you can get a multitude of experiences. But I think in order to really experience Boston, you need to talk to a Bostonian. Like you need to talk to the Boston Public Schools. You need to go somebody whose nana lives here. You can't come from Chicago and then the person that's shaking you around Boston is from Cleveland. They're not going to give you the same experience as somebody who grew up here. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I think the city should be accessible for people that are coming to the table. But at the same time, having a Bostonian in your corner will help, fill in the blanks and shade in some things that normally you might not see. It's one of the reasons why you see old dudes walking around BU with them bad haircuts. They don't know where to get their hair.
I hadn't noticed that data point, but I will make sure on my next run around, I'm like, oh, I see what he's talking about.
I'm joking.
No, but you're right though. One of the things about that what you said, because we are having. So with our tours, we want to have young people, but we also want to have chaperoned by, with older people, and we're looking for Bostonians and of course Bostonians from our communities to do this. Now, when we send it out, we don't get a lot of feedback. So we're actually going to be thinking, okay, how do we get funding, maybe, or whether it's incentivize people to tell to walk around? Because little caveat, there's we're doing for Boston Redline Boston Redline 88, February 8th, we're going to be having an event at Grove Hall called Tell Our Stories with a partner, Boston by Foot. They're a nonprofit here in Boston. You can check them out. And they use volunteers to help run some of their tours. Now, I'm like, oh man, this is like a great idea. But all the time we get volunteers, all the volunteers don't look like me and you, right? So it's a problem because obviously I can't have people that don't look like me and you telling the stories about people that look like me and you. So there's that gap of like, how do we get people involved? So we're trying to do this drive, but that speaks to your point that is important to speak to a real Bostonian, and we need to find ways to incentivize and get these stories out because from Africa, all these stories are in our seniors' heads. Like that's where the stories are. They're not written down anywhere. It's oral history. I learned so much from talking to Bostonians. Malcolm X was arrested in Dudley. He used to work at Wally's for a bit with Red Fox, apparently. I mean, there's all sorts of stories I've heard. Of course, his family
still owns their house on Dale Street.
Right, exactly. There's so many of these stories that there was an ice cream shop right there in Wambeck. And, in Humboldt, it's so much history that if our seniors pass, we won't be able to get it. So I'm so interested in working with Embrace to get more events out there where we're trying to get our seniors out. I'm working with Dr. Janine Mohammed of AARP to try and get combination events together where we can get these stories, because we have to document them. Otherwise, once they go, it's gone. And I don't know about you, but I haven't been able to break through to the ancestors just yet. So we're going to. we need to talk.
Listen, at Embrace, we're very talented, but we haven't broke that code either. So
Right. We're still working on it. Maybe AI will help. Who knows? Right. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm just so excited to be in this space. It is hard. There is lack of funding. There is a lot of we need direct funding. We need direct support because I'm not I know my youth program is kind of My Town. It's kind of like another version of My Town that was done by Carolyn Crockett.
Yes.
Yes, back in the day, with other components I think we've added to it, but still we're trying to improve on that legacy. But My Town should be here. As somebody who moved to Boston about 10 years ago, I think, I'm not a Boston. I won't ever claim to be a Boston unless y'all give me my Boston tickets, my Boston, card.
But you're approaching the amount of time. You've been here for 10 years.
But I think I've talked
They're
to
putting
enough
in the years.
Bostonians. I think I've talked to Bostonians. I'm trying to get an early access. Like I'm trying to get a little bit of. I've been studying your history. I've been teaching your kids. This is my pitch, y'all.
This your
My
pitch.
Boston card. So, I think I've done a lot of work. But what I'm saying is that, I would like us to, we need more direct funding because literally, as far as youth programs, because I've been the Success Link program with the City of Boston. Shout out to the City of Boston, doing great work. Shout out to Boston and beyond, after school and beyond, doing great work there. But as all these programs, I'm the only one that primarily focuses on African American history. I get a lot of Metco students, people, young, first generation students from Caribbean and Africa that are trying to learn more about America. Actually, funny enough, African American students in the BPS system, they're not very interested. But long story short, we need a lot of direct funding as we are like literally on the forefront converting it into, if you check out the Chop It Up pod, our students convert these African American history stories on Mel King and a lot of local areas into like reels, right? They make the reels, do everything themselves. So it's just difficult because there's no, like, it's only Embrace that I can say is a big corporate entity that we identify with in terms of being not more standalone. I'm not talking about the African American history, at Northeastern or Dr. Kamara at UMass. I'm talking about standalone, right? So what can we do, to try and get more support in those regards?
I will tell you, I think that we're all collectively in a very perilous place when it comes to funding. So we've been fortunate to be able to do what we've been able to do, but it is just as hard for us as it is and I know some people don't necessarily think of it that way, but it's just the same difficulties that smaller organizations are facing, we're facing as well, simply because of the nature of the political space that we're in.
Right.
So I think what has to happen, quite honestly, is that we all have to get more innovative in how we start to support each other and support these initiatives. The reality is, I don't think those usual pipelines that might have been a little bit more accessible in the past are really there as the way that they were. And I don't think even, God willing, when we get on the other side of this craziness, that they'll ever fully come back the same way. So we're gonna have to get innovative, and we're gonna have to start thinking outside the box and trying to figure out other ways. Some of the things that we're doing is, with our events, charging, and it just as simple as something.
We've been working on that too. We're still working on it, but at least, this is the first time we're charging for Boston Redline 88. All the others were free to everybody. We're trying to get sponsors, but anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's like that for everyone, and I think that's the difficulty. But the one thing I will say about here in America when it comes to Black people, and it really it doesn't lean into one particular group of Black people, whether it's African Americans, whether it's people from the continent, or whether it's people from the Caribbean or Latin America. We have a resiliency that and innovation comes from us, and also we pull each other up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
One of the things that I'll not to turn your show into my therapist couch, but one of the things that
bring it on, we need it, brother.
One of the things that bothers me sometimes is when I hear people try to relay this narrative of, Black people need to stick together, we need to help each other out. How do you think we survived this long if we weren't helping each other out? How do you think that we've been able to pull together? What we have to do, I think, is actually fight back against this narrative that we don't have each other's backs. Or like, a lot of things online, I see kind of these narratives of these arguments, the diaspora wars, where the Africans don't like the African Americans and the people from the Caribbeans don't like and I always ask myself, who gets served by that discussion? Now, again, I am not trying to act as if there aren't difficulties, there aren't opportunities for us to come together and to address even our former trauma from our interaction with each other, because I know that there has been those places. But I also know that as a black kid growing up in Boston, that when I went to my Jamaican friend's house, I was treated with love and respect. When I went to my Haitian friend's house, I was treated with love and respect. When I went to my African friend's house, I was treated with love and respect. And when they came to my house, it was the same. So this idea that we have this war amongst us and that we don't help each other, I think is wrong. It's just not true. And I think that, to answer your question about how do we kind of rise together and how do we kind of address the funding and all those things, is going to take some innovation between us together. It may be us and, it may be two smaller organizations pairing up to go for a grant together. It's going to take some networking. It's going to take some, oh, well, listen, that's not something that fits us, but you should go talk to these guys. It's going to take us doing what we've always done, which is have each other's back.
100%, and we are actually working on that. Like I told you, my dual cultural thing, that's the space I've always lived in. And it's the reason why Afrimerican Academy was actually, that's why I founded it. When I founded it, it was actually a cultural exchange that was supposed to be. And of course, 10 years ago, then it grew into what it is today. But so I completely understand. And there are reasons, and we're not going to go into that now, but there are traumatic reasons that we need to actually, are we studying cultural differences and finding our work deals with just that. I mean, trying to use similar cultural artifacts, understanding narratives and stories. But these things, I feel that we must be very understanding that like everything I hear, these are echoes of trauma, and they cannot be like if it was a person, we would be, saying there needs to be some therapy. We need to develop a science around it. So this is the end here, especially with the cultural development part. There is ways I know that this can be done. There is some explaining to do on both sides that need to be done. But I think also in order to come together, which is what we're doing, people need to understand that, because I'm an engineer and they look at Afrimerican Academy and they look at the outside because I'm marketing as this. That's literally what it is. Every tour that you support with Afrimerican Academy is a collaboration between multiple nonprofits, and there will be profit sharing. We're just introducing that this year. So the Museum of African American History on Joy Street and the West End Museum and Afrimerican Academy are joint venture partners in the collaboration and development of the New Guinea Joy Tour. So when you support that tour, you're supporting all those nonprofits. I'm working with Hyde Park Main Streets, Hyde Park Historical Society, 54th Regiment, and some other groups within Hyde Park, Southwest Boston CDC, don't want to forget them, the Pride, and we're working on an equity tour, right, where all the nonprofits involved. So if you support this equity tour when it gets off the ground, we're going to try and do one-off with Hyde Park Main Streets for Boston 250. We still haven't developed it all out yet, but on the February 28th, the last event of Boston Redline 80, we're going to do a virtual community session to get feedback from the community on these spaces. So we invite everybody to that, but I just want you to know that that's part of the innovation I think you're speaking to, is that we can't just do things the other way around, look for sponsors, all the normal ways. I said, look, how great would it be if some of the more key organizations in around displacement and education of our community, because that's what all these organizations, and African American history as well as women history, LGBTQ history, so that's why it's called the Equity Tour. It covers a broad swath of things that have happened here in Hyde Park. And how do we now, if you support this one tour, one easy solution, you can support all these organizations, right? And so I think that's part of the innovation you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
And like I said, we have survived here in America and throughout the world by relying on each other and having each other's backs and finding key people who had love for us even outside of our community. I think that's kind of the most important thing, to be able to rise to the occasion and have real and deep relationships that allow us to rise together.
Exactly. So I know I've kept you guys a long time, a little longer than possible, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say, give us some words of wisdom. Like Samson with the wisdom and the hair, and you're feeling your aura, bro. Like I said, the kids say your aura is right. So give us some words, for us to take this year, because I think that was a great sentiment you just gave.
I will tell you this. I don't know if I have too many words of wisdom, but I'll give you some of the things that are.
Y'all, he's one of those humble people that he was talking about earlier that don't want to take credit for for what they doing. But no, we appreciate you. Go ahead, brother.
I don't know how much words of wisdom I got, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So for me, the way I'm approaching this year, my birthday is actually next Thursday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going from old to real old on next Thursday. But the way that I'm approaching it is that I'm spending my time and my energy on loving the people who love me, being very intentional,
right,
and not operating from a place of anger. Because anger can blind you. It's not to say that to not recognize hurt. Don't get me wrong. I'm never telling people to shake it off and keep it moving. I think that's healthy as well. But I'm also saying I'm not allowing it to stymie me and freeze me in place. And I think sometimes that happens to us. And one of the things I would probably say is that, kind of what we were alluding to earlier, is that we're in this together. Yes. We are in this together, and we need to look at who that we is and be more intentional with that. There's a reason why people fight so hard to keep us from voting. There's a reason why people fight so hard to keep us going at each other. There is a reason why those things happen. So the minute I see somebody working and busting their behind to keep all Black people from not getting along with other Black people, that automatically there's a red flag to me. Like,
right,
something
that's exactly what we need to do.
We can get together. The same thing when it comes to when I'm thinking about people that we ally with outside of our community. Why are you so intent on not allowing me to have a conversation with somebody who is from a different culture of me? Right. Why does that bother you? What is it about that scares you so doggone much that you are going through all these machinations to make that happen? So my goal is to recognize those patterns. I would tell other people to look for those things as well, and probably run straight towards the thing that they're trying to keep you from. Right. Because that's probably the thing that's going to help you out. Think about it. When you combine the resilience and the power of the African American experience that is so much been an imprint on the entire world, and you put the hard work and the innovation and the thought process of people from the continent and the history and the pieces of that, and you combine that with the folks from the Caribbean and the passion and the warrior spirit that comes from those people, and you combine that with the like-minded people that you find from outside of our community, the Asian folks that are on the same thing, the Latino folks that are on the same thing. Yes, a whole different type of situation going on. So my goal is to really just be looking out, and I would say to other people to look out for those people who love you, who are willing to have your back, and be prepared to love them back. You know what I mean? And I think we should be more gentle with each other. I think we should show more love to each other. I think that we should try to figure out how we can come together, because it's very easy in times like this to close yourself down, slam your door shut. But that is, to me, what people want to see happen. I think more than ever, we need each other. So the thing that I would say to people, if I was going to say, hey, you want to take some words from me, figure out find your people, and not just your people in terms of your cultural background, but find your people in terms of like-mindedness and work hard with them to get the things that you need to make yourself whole and happy in this world.
I couldn't say it any better. Wow. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We're just so appreciative of everything,
No
from the Embrace
problem.
Boston, the whole team. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, well, you have it. Gregory Ball, has given us the words that we need to work by, right? As always here at the Afrimerican Academy, we ask you to build community, repair harm, and promote inclusivity on that road to the culture to thrive. So keep it up and go Pat this weekend. Go
That's
Pat.
those
So
fingers.
right, let's go. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Redline Narratives Podcast. Peace.